Front, Samopomich. No independent. There's one independent. All these wonderful people represent the interfactional union EuroOptimists. There are many of the MPs. We'll be talking about annual report and work of this association. Good afternoon. We, as the association EuroOptimists, recognizing that we have to report to this society, we decided to make this report. Now, we were formed on the 3rd of February 2015. This is not a year, that is 9 months. But I believe it is important to sum up before the new year. Our briefing will be designed in the following way. We will talk about the report. We hope you all have it. We disseminated it. It will be on Facebook page. And then each one of the members of our associations will have 2 minutes to say a couple of words on some part of the report. I will start from your permission, and I will talk about main 6 results of our work that we managed to achieve. First of all, we, as an interfactional association, managed to unite the MPs from different factions, different parties, and independent, which has become very important, more important than being part of a political union. This way we got united around common advocacies, common policies. We became the co-authors of some of the revolutionary draft laws. We continued the reforms which were developed by different think tanks, NGOs, experts, and in the parliament we became the co-authors of these draft laws. We managed to initiate the international dialogue at a high level. I would like to say that we managed to develop the system of personal contacts at the highest level via different international structures, NATO, Oleksiy, Council of Europe. We developed a systemic work with the civil society. We need to recognize that there is no country in the European Union where the role of civil society is so significant, and the bridge that we created with civil organizations became the bridge with the civil society, and it allows now the citizens to influence the legislative initiative. We have become the unique association. We are not connected to any of the oligarchic and big financial groups. The decisions are usually approved on all-inclusive and transparent principles. We, as interfaction association, we are paying a lot of attention to the principle of accountability to the society, and that is why we are always explaining our work. I would like to mention that In all the spheres, we managed to organize different meetings, seminars. In all different regions of Ukraine, we organized different meetings, and on a quarterly basis, we were reporting as MPs, as association. This way, again, emphasizing that we are open to communication, to development of relations with the society, using different communication technologies. These are 6 big results of our activities. You will find a detailed list of all the draft laws as well as all our activities for the last year. Now I would like to give the floor to our coordinator, Natalia Katser-Buchkovska. I am Katser-Buchkovska, the member of the Committee on Fuel and Energy, representative of the People's Front. I will tell you about one of the important components of our activity, which is international activity, because in the situation in which Ukraine is, the international support is really important. Also, the assistance of international community to Ukraine is of importance. Via the representative offices of international organizations, we were standing for the interests of Ukraine. Our group participated in the meetings of Parliamentary Assembly of NATO. We also participated in the World Economic Forum in Davos and in other organizations. We are also members of the representative office which unites more than 160 different countries of the world. And in this organization, we were discussing all the problems that Ukraine is facing. Besides what Svitlana mentioned, it is very important to establish personal contacts, to have the support of different international organizations. So we organized several meetings. These were meetings with the Minister of Finance of the U.S., Vice President of the U.S., also with other representatives of international community. We are the representatives in energy community, in energy council, and we are also promoting the interests of Ukraine, which relate to the energy security of our country. This is very important, especially in the context of Russian aggression and the necessity to diversify energy supplies to Ukraine. Participation in such international organizations is of great importance, and I believe that in the future we will also continue our active work in international organizations. That is why this direction of work is a key direction, and we will continue to work along these lines. Good afternoon, esteemed colleagues. Ryabchyn Oleksiy, Batkivshyna faction, also member of Fuel and Energy Committee. Together with the colleagues, we are presenting the laws where we were co-authors. I will present the draft laws in the sphere of energy sector. In this committee, we have 3 EuroOptimists, myself, Natalia, Katser-Buchkovska, and Wojcicka. We managed to promote some of the drafts. For example, 4 EuroOptimists from different factions were the co-authors of the draft law on transparency. The law is working. Another important draft was the draft on renewable energy sources, where we demonopolized and de-oligarchized this sector. And now we see that investors started coming to this sector, which we believe is of high perspective for Ukraine. Also, we supported the governmental draft on the natural gas market. We were told that this draft will never be passed, but it was passed with the assistance of our lobby. And after all the secondary legislation is passed, it will revolutionarily transform the energy market, and we will not stop on that. We will continue to reform this sector, which is unfortunately one where there's a lot of corruption. And we will be transforming this sector, will be developing energy efficiency, will be making this sector more sustainable. Who else? I will not talk about some of the drafts. I am Ivanna, Klympush-Tsintsadze, Petro Poroshenko bloc. I would like to mention certain of the things which Natalia Katser-Buchkovska mentioned, that practically most of us are members of interparliamentary delegations from Ukraine. Natalia did not mention Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, where many of our EuroOptimists are. And basically, thanks to our active activity in these parliamentary assemblies, we manage to do a lot for the country and to achieve positive results, to have such resolutions implemented which support Ukraine, which are not always supporting primary initiative, but when we additionally work with them from doubt, they switch to support. Also, a lot of efforts are directed towards establishing serious civil control over the armed forces of Ukraine, over the defense sector. You probably know that now there are some principal documents which are to be passed, the concept of the development of armed forces of Ukraine till 2020, and via cooperation with some of EuroOptimists, with Taras Pastukh, with Yaroslav Markevich from Samopomich, with other colleagues from the Committee on Euro Integration and the Committee on Foreign Affairs, which are part of our association. We now manage to actively get involved into this process of development of these documents and control, so that they correspond to the legislation of Ukraine, which talks about the objectives of getting membership in NATO, and that will allow us to follow the implementation of these different stages, and if needed, to provide assistance from the part of the parliament.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, friends. Some secret: when this briefing is shown, the assistant says speak slower, because there are so many legislative changes passed, but also because our foreign guests are watching and there's a simultaneous translation, so we have to speak slow, but we will not be able to talk about all the changes that took place this year. This year was very significant. We managed to pass the law on combating political corruption that introduces financing parties from the budget. It will start working from the next year. The parties will be getting money for their activities from the taxpayers' money, but those political parties which will be able to report on their expenditures will be able to get the money from the budget and will not be responsible from dependent on the oligarchs. This is especially important for the parties that overcome the barrier. That law has been signed by the president. It will become effective from the new year. Now the National Agency on Preventing Corruption should start operating. Also, a movement was lobbying the law on transparency of state registers. Many of us were journalists, and we know how important for investigative journalists is to have the access to official information about the owners of land, companies, and even cars, starting from today. This is all now transparent and open, and investigative journalists can use these facts in their publications, and the Anti-Corruption Bureau will also be participating in these activities.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm Shkrum Alyona for Batkivshyna faction, the subhead of committee on the customs service and reform of the civil service. This issue of the civil service reform had been being discussed for many years. There were several draft laws on this topic, and never they entered the parliament. That's why our objective was to involve all the stakeholders from NGO, from civil society, from MPs, from the government, and we managed to reform the public administration in Ukraine. And after second reading, the law on civil service was passed, and in line with this law, all civil servants, both at the central level and in the regions, will be now selected and appointed in result of all sorts of competitions. Also, the EuroOptimists made a commitment to promote the amendments to the law on the Cabinet of Ministers, thus promoting the reform of public institutions. And this is our strong commitment to pass all those necessary laws which will change the public administration and will allow to introduce the e-government. Also, the reform of anti-monopoly committee was supported by our colleague Victoriya and by our group. And further on, we will promote passage of this similar legislation and supervise their implementation. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I believe that practical work of our platform is very important. When we find agreement on some policy issues, we promote further passage of some draft laws in our factions. Probably you have already felt that these were some revolutionary things. For example, Alyona Shkrum participated in lobbying of the law on civil service. Also, we supported very much the passage of the law on the gas market reform in Ukraine, and also the law on anti-corruption. I will speak about my sphere, media sphere. We have established the state committee on telecommunications and subordinated all state TV channels to it. We also organized disbanding of the municipal and local media. And with the passage of the set of laws in the media sector, we can state that we have created transparent conditions for proper functioning of the media market. Also, now we work on the law on the allocated media channels, which will allow the TV channels to earn more money than providers. So I would like to emphasize that optimism will exist. It exists and it will continue its existence because I believe that we are now doing the civilizational change. We have passed a set of legislative amendments for the sake of gaining visa-free regime, and we are very much very optimistic about visa-free regime. Good afternoon. We were asked to speed up. My colleagues presented our achievements rather modestly. At the very beginning, I quite often heard that in our group, MPs wish just to make good PR. But we acted in a more proactive way than many other factions. First, what Serhiy mentioned, that it was one of our MPs who promoted the passage of the public administration law. Then the law about quorum in the state companies, that as well launched the discourse about de-oligarchization in the country. Then the law on the accounting chamber. Ivan Kulik is now in Severodonetsk, but nevertheless, the law which he promoted, Ivan Krulkov from Batkivshyna supported that law very much. Anti-Monopoly Committee supported and promoted by Victoriya Ptashnik. She is also EuroOptimist. The civil service reform entered the parliament on behalf of Alyona Shkrum. Anti-discrimination reform, which was supported and promoted by our MPs. Transparency of media, Victoriya, who was the driver of this law in mass media committee. Svitlana, Zalishchuk, and Ivanna Klympush-Tsintsadze used to be our very powerful speakers at the international area, but without their support, no resolutions favorable for Ukraine would be passed. That is, my message is that no other parliamentary association or parliamentary group suggested similar number of changes and promotions, and no other MP group, union or association can demonstrate such visual achievements. We are grateful to the leadership of the parliament who heard us. We are very grateful to those our supporters who expressed their support to us, but who did not dare to join us openly. But I believe that during the next year, besides the law about transparency and about state financing of the political parties, this tradition will be continued. Oleksandr Chernenko is our main expert in elections issue, and we believe that we will finalize our work on better election code. Oleksiy deals with the eastern regions issues, and we expect to have very strong parliamentary documents on the IDPs very soon. Of course, we do not possess such big resources as many other parliamentary groups. Our only resource is media, but we are grateful to all our assistants who supported us.
Так, доброго дня.
Good afternoon, Dmytro Dobrodomov. I am independent after Mustafa. He explained everything, but he forgot to mention about the initiated by EuroOptimists anti-corruption platform. On Wednesday, part of EuroOptimists, there will be anti-corruption forum which will take place on Wednesday together with the active civil society. Will be looking for ways out and will be looking for actions to fight corruption. It will be about unification of these forces. I would like to invite you all to that anti-corruption forum, which will take place on Wednesday. From our report, we will also support the draft law 2343A and some other draft laws on lustration. Execution of that law was failed.
Дякую, шановні.
Thank you, esteemed colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here. Mustafa probably is the most modest one. He forgot to mention also that we have done a lot to develop the draft law on national police, and Mustafa is number one here. This is the unique case when the legislator is involved not just in legislative drafting, but is involved into executive work. We now see the results of which is creation of a new police. I would also like to say a few words about judicial reform. We will be putting all our efforts into this work. Myself personally, I believe that that's the most important reform for our country. It will allow us to implement all other reforms. Also, myself, as a member of parliamentary delegation to Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, together with my colleagues Svitlana, Zalishchuk, Sotnik, and Kirilim, and Alyona Sotnik has her birthday. She's not with us now, but we congratulate her. Lena, if you see us, happy birthday to you. But it was a pleasure to hear in Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe when our European partners say, since Ukraine joined the European Convention on Human Rights, this is now the best delegation from Ukraine. We are doing a lot to promote the interests of Ukraine at European level. Thank you.
Доброго дня.
Good afternoon, esteemed friends, esteemed colleagues. Taras Pastukh from Samopomich. Today I'm probably the only one from Samopomich. I would like to mention several of our other colleagues. Alenka Sotnik was mentioned. She did a lot in legislative drafting. Victoriya is our representative. She did a lot on legislation and energy sector. Serhiy Kiril is also our member. I would like to say a few words on what Ivanka started talking about, and that is the issue of the national security complex. Ukraine has not been ready to this conflict, and this year we managed to develop the legislation so that we can address the challenges. But today our representatives, the EuroOptimists, are doing a lot when they are meeting with foreign experts, and our main message is we want to move the platform of reforming this sector from the Ministry of Defense to the Parliament, because the Ministry of Defense will never reform itself, because there are many people from the Kremlin there, they will be blocking it. And now I believe we'll be able to draft the laws which we need so that Ukraine gets closer to becoming the full-fledged member of the NATO.
I'm the last to speak today. I am Oleksiy Mushak from BPP. I would like to start my presentation from a very simple question. How could you be successful in the 21st century? And I have a very simple answer to it. You should think and act on the framework of team results, team outcomes. And EuroOptimists actually demonstrates this quite clearly. We're representing different factions or MPs beyond the factions, but I believe that without teamwork, Ukraine would never reach better life standards. And also we believe that the parliament has to set models for other Ukrainians, and we are getting united for the sake of some principles, not for the sake of interests, but for the sake of principles. My colleagues summed up about our achievements, but I would like to emphasize that tomorrow is demanding, and tomorrow we will vote for the budget, for the law on the budget. This will be the scenario for the whole country for the next year. We want to prevent a situation from the last year when we had to pass the law on budget during one day actually and vote over one night. And we have to have high quality scrutiny and high quality discussion on the budget because when the budget is passed very quickly, this creates space for corruption. That's why we suggested to pass the law on budget in first reading tomorrow, and later in January vote it in the second reading. EuroOptimists initiated open discussions in the committees, and we also suggested strengthen responsibility of MPs, and we understand that the quality policy could not, in the parliament, could not be developed by MPs whose salary is at the level of $200, and the billions of hryvnia should not be managed by those people who receive some $200, $300 salary. This creates incentives for corruption. So this will be our topics for the future. Thank you for your attention. We would be happy to have similar briefings, not just once a year, but each quarter. Thank you for your attention. Dear friends, we are ready for questions and answers. Thank you, Svitlana, and please don't forget to represent yourselves. No questions? Kuchumov, on Friday we voted for establishing the Ukraine-EU platform, 15 members from Ukraine, 15 members from the EU. We have the information society, energy policy, political dialogue, foreign activities, and security issues. That is, NGO is following the same way as you. So my question is, maybe you know when we will have the Deputy Minister on European integration. We are happy that we are carrying out reforms jointly with civil society, and I can assure you that the majority of revolutionary draft laws which were passed by the parliament were drafted jointly with NGO and civil society. So thank you for this support. As for the Deputy Minister on Euro integration, our Foreign Affairs Committee, European Integration Committee, and the Parliament in general several times requested the government to introduce this post and to appoint the person. But nevertheless, this falls within the scope of the Cabinet of Ministers, within the scope of the Prime Minister in particular, so we can be responsible for it. On energy issues, I believe that very soon one of the EuroOptimists will become the leader of the Ministry of Energy, and in this case we will have not the Ministry of Energy and Minerals, but we will have the Ministry of Energy and Euro Efficiency. Dealing with international activities and about Deputy Minister on European integration, I should say that nevertheless we have rather a proactive group of inside the European Affairs Committee who actively cooperate with the energy community, with Mr. Jan Kompach, and with the Euro Commission's Energy Committee, and we develop energy diplomacy as a special area of our activity, and I believe that during next year we will strengthen this work, and seeing our strengthened effort, Ministry will do more in this area. Thank you.
I have a question to Ivanna Klympush and to Svitlana Zalishchuk as the representatives of the Committee on Foreign Affairs. You are diplomats from Ukrainian parliament. I've read your statement in the morning about the budget, about finances. What amount should be allocated to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for all the foreign trips? Because these figures are very small. Thank you for your questions. In fact, the draft budget, which is for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it is practically 67% of the minimum requirements. That means that the legal support in judicial instances of the claims of Ukraine against Russian Federation related to annexation of Crimea supported by 30% only. Then the exchange rate inflation hasn't been taken into account. We understand that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs pays for everything in hard currency, and it should be taken into account when the budget for this ministry is being developed. There are no expenditures for development included. Besides, there are no capital repairs included there. And for example, if we do not repair some building which is abroad, it's not, that means that in a year, in 2, in 3 years, we will have to pay serious fines for not doing it. Now, when we save several million, in the perspective we will have a problem, we will have to pay much more as fines. The minimum figure required so that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs could survive is 319.6 million hryvnias. That is $1 million or hryvnias. I would like to emphasize, if we cannot do that, that means that we threaten the national security of Ukraine. We put under threat the support of our efforts abroad. Thank you for your question. The next step is we have the decision of the Committee on Foreign Affairs. This is the request to the Committee on Budget, which will be considering the amendments submitted by the MPs. We submitted, our committee submitted some amendments, and the colleagues from the Committee on European Integration will also be submitting similar amendments. Thank you. I believe that Ivanka has answered this question. We will thank her, and we would like to thank all the journalists, all the colleagues who came to the briefing. So, see you again. The next one will be probably the quarterly report in 2016.
Колега, наступний наш брифінг за 15.
Our next briefing will be in 15 minutes, and we will discuss the topic. When is Commission confirmed the right of Ukraine to hold decommunization?